hasn't yet been through the council's internal governance process. And you can see there are next steps. So just to start, we'll finalise the draft strategy, start moving it through internal governance before a public consultation, before we finalise the strategy later on in the year. And that was all I was going to present, and welcome any comments from John or Kofi, or questions from yourselves.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gawley and Mr. Warne, for that. Are there any questions, please, members? Councillor Cottam.
Thank you. Firstly, I just say thank the officers for a great strategy document. It's very, very impressive. About 3 or 4 points I've got here. Try turning the speaker on for a start, the microphone on for a start. Basically, you talking about 5.1, improved collection services. And improving recycling of, for example, paper. I read somewhere that if paper gets wet, it can't be recycled. Is there some maybe consideration of getting a lid which may improve our? I don't know. I'm speculating here. What is our paper? Should really be our question as what is our paper recycling rate, and would it be improved by preventing rain getting it wet?
Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cottam. We don't have a problem with paper getting wet. Veolia would be shouting at us if we did, because they wouldn't be able to move it on anywhere. And part of the paper recycling process is it does go through water treatment. But there can be an issue if it does get too wet, because we're paying for haulage for water rather than for paper. And paper mills don't want to pay for water either. So it's something we don't have too much of an issue with. It hasn't been raised as an issue with us from Veolia. So yeah, we're fortunate. We're fortunate in the way that Veolia deal with it to make sure we can move on when it does get wet. A few months a year, it does.
Great, thank you. And if I may move on to 5.2, improving street scenes. One of our popular subjects as councillors is dog bins, of course. And something that the town councils and parish councils have done, particularly Thatcham, had put a QR code on the bins. In the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've had 3 serious complaints of basically dog bins being not only overfull, but spilling over the pavement. It's a bad situation. If we had, for example, a QR code on the bin, then they could be more easily reported. I know you can go through to report, but with the public, you've got to make it as easy as possible. Just a comment, really. And basically one thing I noticed and we use the food waste bin very regularly, we fill it nearly every week. What does that say? Basically, I don't remember having any educational material put out with that bin. Maybe I missed it, but maybe this is a lost opportunity. I would say, what is the take-up generally across the district, and are there things that maybe we could do?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cottam again. Dog bins, I'll refer to my colleague Paul Hendry and talk to him about dog bins, but I'm agree that we need to make sure the public can report things as easily as they need to for overflowing dog bins and litter bins alike. So we'll take that back for sure.
Great, that's all I was asking. And finally, again, I see that we were promoting the repair cafes, which I have visited, and I think it's an excellent idea. And it looks like, to me, it's working very well. So again, compliments to the staff. That's it. Thank you.
I don't think the question was answered about the education around food waste. Sorry.
Yeah, no, happy to answer. Yeah, when we originally delivered the bins, there was some educational material within the bin, but that was a long time ago now. So we are aware we need to do another push. Last year we provided stickers on bins, which weren't always popular with everybody, but did have a good impact. So we're looking at what we can do again to drive that message. Yeah, and the last survey we undertook, it was 59% participation, 59% participation within the service. That was last August. So we're happy with that, but again, there's still more work to be done.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matharaj.
Thank you, Chairman. Following on from Councillor Cottam's food waste one, so a couple of points and questions. First of all, I want to commend the officers and the team and portfolio, Councillor Gowley, for the uptake of the food services collection. And also, I think the soil conditioner, providing soil conditioner is a good idea. And I think that I've heard from a couple of residents and constituents that it is really useful, and then the uptake is being really good, improving. The question on that one is the problem faced by number of households, including myself, is the bin liner used for the food waste. It has to be biodegradable. I understand that, but it's not widely available in the convenience stores or in Tesco's and Sainsbury's, because you go and search for the bin liners for the food waste, they're not that readily available as like the other bin liners. So they are not 100% biodegradable. So what happens is, in certain households, I've seen in my neighborhood that they are food waste being thrown in the Sainsbury's bag or small bags. They're not biodegradable. So my question is, how are officers responding to that? And the number two is, it's more of a question or a concern. You can see like the food waste are being collected in small containers, and when the Veolia staff are coming back to collect it, they dump it in a big green bin. What happens is, when they open it and dump it, the stench or the odor coming from that one is not good in the neighborhood, and it is. I've seen Veolia people coming and collecting that without mask or without any. So they're effectively collecting the food waste, biodegradable waste, without any precautions. And it looks like it needs some kind of thought where how a secure or good way of taking that. And in close neighborhood like ours, it creates a mess in particularly during the rain and scorching heat. So those were the concerns or the questions to officers. I know you're all looking at that, but it's maybe you can address that. Thank you.
Would you like to comment on that, Mr. Vaughan?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Councillor Amirfaraj. Yes, so the food bags, we ideally would like them to be in compostable liners, which unfortunately are different to biodegradable. We do know they are available at local supermarkets. I get one from Tesco's. So I guess we can try and engage to see if we can make it easier, make them stand out a bit more. But they are available, and it needs to be compostable. Residents can put their food waste in the bags in the bins loose. You don't have to have a bag, but we would kind of suggest for cleanliness and that the compostable bags are best. We have in the past given them away at the organising giveaways in the queue. We've given to people, and we did do a giveaway or last year at the libraries. So again, we'll look at seeing how often we can give them away free of charge when we can. Well, yeah, we were always reviewing in terms of health and safety and your concerns there with the stench. You're always reviewing and monitoring the area to make sure they're meeting standards. At the moment, they are. But no, we will review, and if there's a particular area you're concerned with, we're happy to take that particular area from you and look at in more detail. Certainly, but yeah, reassure you that the cruiser will be working in a safe way.
Thank you. Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I very much welcome Councillor Armitrage's comments about welcoming the separate food waste collection and the soil conditioner giveaways. I'm sure he's aware that those began in the previous administration under Councillor Ardagh Walter. So it's nice to set politics aside and welcome those initiatives as they come along. And just to build on what Mr. Warren was saying there, we get our compostable liners from Amazon, which are available fairly cheap, very easily, and that's something to bear in mind to perhaps point residents in that direction. I have a few questions on this, all related to page 72 of the pack, actually, Councillor Gourley, which is the future options section, or future services, sort of the alternatives that are put there. The first one I noted here, you've got 6 options, table 4.1 on page 72 of our pack. We've got 6 options there. Something that jumped out at me is that only one of those options has garden waste not being charged. So all 5, sorry, the first 5 options have garden waste being charged, and the second is free. And I think the two comparable ones would be option 1 and option 6. The only difference between those two is both fortnightly collections. We're collecting the PET film and foil, which, by the way, I welcome. I think residents will really welcome that, the ability to collect those plastic tubs and trays. But yeah, the only difference between those two is that in option 6, garden waste is being modelled as free, and in option 1, it's being modelled as charged. And the free garden waste proposal only increases that recycling rate from 52 to 53. So I am directing this question through you, Chairman, to Councillor Gourley rather than Mr. Warren, because it's a bit of a political one. But can you confirm that your commitment to remove the garden waste charge by 2027 still stands in the light of this strategy?
Absolutely, yes. However, I would correct you, Councillor McKinnon, on the fact that we haven't set an end date. The manifesto pledge was to phase out the green bin charge. There was no specific end date on that.
Thank you, Councillor Gourley. I have correspondence from your former leader. Is Councillor Dillon?
Our MP for Newbury.
Has he left the council yet? I'm not sure. But correspondence from him saying that the pledge does relate to the end of this term by 2027. So we can get back to this one, of course. But do I detect then that there's potential for that phasing out to go beyond the election next time?
As per our manifesto, it was to phase out the green bin charge, say.
Oh, we will come back to that one, Councillor Gourley.
I'm sure we will. I look forward to it.
And well, you should do. I'm very enjoyable. And Councillor Culver, sorry, Chairman, one more question for you, if you don't mind. I see that option 4 and option 5 have rubbish modelled as being collected 3 weekly and 4 weekly. Now, my family, we have 4 children, and I totally get what Mr. Warren and everyone else is saying about education. I think we recycle pretty much everything we can do. Yeah, being a councillor certainly focuses the mind on that one. And with 4 children, particularly young ones who are generating sort of nappy waste, fortnightly black bins, I am standing in my black bin. Really am, and the prospect, and I'm sure many families across West Berkshire would share my concerns. The prospects of black bins being collected, even 3 weekly, but 4 weekly, would fill me with absolute dread. So many council taxpayers are fortunate enough that their interactions with the council are limited to the roads and the bins. They don't have relatives who use adult social care. Perhaps they don't quite see the council's involvement in education. The bins and the roads are by far the 2 most visible services. I would just urge you not to go anything less frequent than 2 weekly for rubbish. I think that would go down very, very badly with most of our residents.
Thank you. Can I just ask a supplementary to that as well? Do we know how many other councils go to 3-week and 4-week collections?
There are certainly multiple councils across the country that have already implemented 3 and 4 week bin collections. Bracknell being one of the most recent and closest ones. That's probably of equal kind of standing to us. I'd also just highlight quickly that in the strategy, and I'm trying to find the page and I've lost the page, but it does note that where this is a consideration, and it is, a consideration, it's a strategy, it's an option, and it is an option, and only an option, it's not policy. It is an option at the moment, along with 6 others, that actually we recognise that it might not be achievable for everybody, so there would be a mitigation for that for situations such as, Councillor McKinnon mentions there. I mean, I've got 2 young children, both been in nappies, one still in nappies, and I've also got 3 cats. And sometimes I wonder what the messiest ones are. And actually we could probably do it. We could probably get to 3 weekly. But like I said, it is in the strategy. I can't find the page number specifically, but it does highlight the fact that we would, if we were to look at that option, there would be mitigation processes in place to capture those that might not be able to achieve that. We wouldn't just do it high and dry.
And I'd just like to underscore for the benefit of any members of the public or indeed journalists watching that this is still under discussion. This is not a proposal that we're going to go to 3 or 4 weekly. I think it's important that we discuss these issues in public so that people know what we're thinking about. But I would just urge people not to leap to conclusions and think we're making this decision tonight. Because I realise this was discussed at Environment Advisory Group a while back, and then it ended up on the front page of the Newbury Weekly News. And was spun in a way that didn't particularly represent all the facts. But yeah, Councillor McKinnon, do you want to come back on that?
I don't disagree with anything you've said there, Chairman. And again, just to reiterate my comments, I was urging the administration not to go down that route, but fully appreciate this is a draft strategy, but
Yeah.
getting that on the record.
Thank you very much. Who did I have next? Councillor Reid.
Yes. So.
Yes, thank you. I was very glad to see that fly tipping and abandoned vehicles are on the strategy or mentioned in the lead up. Obviously, there's quite a lot of wordage that still needs to be put in those areas. I think they're still relatively blank, and certainly the word abandoned's not actually in the draft at the moment. I also noticed in the slides the burnt out vehicle was actually one that happened in my ward 2 weeks ago. Yes, very pertinent. One of the things is the speed to remove those abandoned vehicles, whether they're burnt out or not, and whether we can address the amount of time and also the pollution that they leave behind as well. As you can tell, a burnt out vehicle leaves not only oil waste, but also quite a lot of carcinogens. And children tend to play in burnt out vehicles, which obviously is a health hazard as well.
Mr. Warren, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Reid. Yeah, in terms of the abandoned vehicles, but you do have to follow legislation in terms of being sure that a vehicle is abandoned. The one in the slide was burnt out, and hopefully we moved that one pretty quickly. But we do have to follow legislation to make sure we're not taking a vehicle or moving an inconveniently parked car instead of an abandoned vehicle. But we get your comments, and yeah, we will always see and do what we can to remove those vehicles as soon as possible. And yeah, we should be clearing up any mess left afterwards. So yeah, we will continue to do that. And if there are any cases when that doesn't happen, please do get in touch, and we'll make the effort to make sure that's mentioned in the strategy. I should have apologised earlier for the fly tipping section not being filled in yet on the draft, or at least a note not being included to say that's will be obviously filled in the next stage of the draft.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. Excuse me, Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chair. A few points from me. I'm going to start off with a personal one. Item 3.2. Can we look at the colour scheme that's in the report, please? Because for those of us that struggle with colours, it's really quite difficult to read. And I know there are at least 2 of us as members on the council. Lighter background or different text will be fine. A question generally with regards to the average contributing weight per person. Is that because we are a reasonably affluent area? Do we, in benchmarking exercises, end up being very similar to similar areas around the country? I can go through all the questions first if you want, and I can pick them up from there. Or
that's fine, as long as Mr. Warren can keep up with them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Community litter picking. It's good to see that is mentioned a couple of times in the report, and I absolutely support it as somebody that regularly joins in. Is it something that we can report on, the volume of requests, the frequency of requests? Obviously, we have certain weeks during the year where it's pushed, and quite rightly so. It is quite a supplement to making the area look to be better than it otherwise might be. And it is something that is done obviously purely on a voluntary basis. So it would be nice to sort of get some sort of context around exactly how much people are contributing towards that. And the last one, I think, from me is with regards to the recycling rate target of 60%. And my question on this really is twofold. Is it a stretch target, or is it a target which directly links to 4 weekly collections in table 4.1? Where does 60% put us nationally on current performance of everybody else? Because it would be interesting to know whether that is a sufficiently stretched target from where we currently are, or whether it's could be seen quite cynically as a convenient target. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Warren, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Somner. I'll do my best if I've noted them all down, so do jump in if I don't, please. So in terms of weight per person, yes, we do probably think it is probably because we are an affluent area, not that should be a reason. So we can do some more work on benchmarking to similar demographic areas to see if there is an anomaly there, but we need to be we are a fairly affluent area. In terms of the community litter picking, yes, no, we love everybody who does that and goes out to help keep our lovely district clean and tidy. And yeah, we'll see what we can do to report on how much the community contribute to that. And we do always encourage groups that are taking part to let us know, send us pictures, and we'll share it, and we'll praise as much as we can.
Maybe I can assist Councillor Somner. The Thatcham Town Council actually provides equipment to Thatcham litter pickers, and I know personally that they can come back with 7, 8, 9, even more sacks full. We might be able to approach the Thatcham Town Council and get some figures for that, because they thoroughly encourage this, and I follow it on social media, and they do a great job. And all I would like to say is we need to thank them more for their efforts.
I totally agree, and you're absolutely right. I'm looking to my left as somebody that regularly manages Tyler's litter pickers. Holybrook Parish regularly do litter picks, and in both cases we've actually got our own kit now and don't need to rely on the council. So you're absolutely right, there is a joining together of information, but as a way of managing or monitoring it, I think it's something that should be looked at, and you're totally correct. Thanks absolutely should be regularly heaped on them.
Great. Can I just ask a supplementary about that? I know that we have kits at West Berkshire Council that we lend out, for example, to parish councils. Is that taken up regularly by people? Are those kits always out there being used?
Yeah, they're well used, particularly during Great British Spring Clean is when we heavily push it. But yeah, they generally throughout the year are used, and they're available to anyone, not just parish councils and groups, but any group who wants to come along.
Great.
Elizabeth.
Okay.
There's only 2 other points for Councillor Somner, if I can. Yeah. You've noted the colour, and we'll make sure it goes through. Obviously, it's not in our council colours and bits of it yet, so that'll go through the comms team, the PR team, before it's gone out, and we appreciate the feedback on that one. And in terms of the recycling rate, 60%, nationally, that would put us in the top 5 if we hit 60%, and it will take a lot of work, from all of us to get there. It will be a challenge, but something we think we can do.
Thank you. That's really useful. I mean, that is quite a target to reach, and that's commendable. Of course, there's almost like a perverse incentive scenario creeping up in there, isn't it? Where if actually you address the weight per person, then the available weight to recycle is going to go in the opposite direction. So be interesting to keep an eye on that one as it goes through. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Kofi, did you want to make a comment on that?
Yes, short one, Chair. Thank you. So on that note, I wanted to flag that the top performing authorities, typically, they have strong incentives for people to recycle and to throw away less. That's how come we are proposing that things like 3 weekly be strongly considered by our decision makers, because now that we've provided curbside weekly food waste collections, it means that it frees up capacity in the black bin. And unless you give people a natural incentive to recycle more, then they will find ways to fill the black bin. And I note the concerns, and as stated before, we would put in place mitigations if, and strongly underline if, decision makers decide to go forward with such an option. And we've already been talking to neighboring authorities and those afar who've already gone ahead and implemented 3 weekly successfully. What you find is often there's a lot of concerns ahead of the launch, and in places people have launched big petitions, but once it's actually been implemented, people find that the concerns were not so significant, and they can actually cope with a less frequent general waste collection. So all that to say, the ambition we've set for ourselves is very strong and stretching, and we'll need all the levers, the push and pull factors to ensure we get there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If I might, Chair, thank you for indulging. I just want to understand, Kofi, and I take your point absolutely. Something that I see as I walk into work, especially today at the Royal Berks, walking through Reading Borough Council, is that actually they've taken to providing smaller bins. Is that something that you collectively have taken out of the equation over extending the period of the collection?
Thank you for that question. So yes, indeed, that is the alternative to reducing the frequency of collection. So it's good to see that, or interesting, I should say, that for our closest neighbors, Reading went the way of keeping fortnightly general waste collections, but significantly constraining the available capacity, whereas Bracknell Forest kept the larger bin, but went to 3 weekly collections. They tackled the problem in different ways. Based on all the national statistics, the 3 weekly tends to be the stronger incentive in driving up waste minimization and higher recycling. And the added benefit of the 3 weekly is that you can use the existing bins. You don't need to throw them all away and reorder smaller bins. So it's a more efficient changeover, and also it's better for the environment in the sense that you're not manufacturing or buying new bins at great cost. So whilst it will be up to decision makers which way we go, if at all, between the two, if we were asked to recommend one, I would strongly recommend a 3 weekly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Just wanted to make a couple of points about litter. So I'm really pleased to see one of the suggestions about educational programmes in schools. I'm really thrilled to say that as part of Tilehurst Litter Pickers, I've been working with Little Heath School, who have an excellent programme on environmental impact. And we've been out and done a couple of litter picks with them in their local area, which not only demonstrates to the young people the benefit of what they're doing, but also to the community around them when they see that happening. So that's really important. The other thing that I notice that I'm really pleased about is when I do organise litter picks, the younger children that come along are the ones that are quite often dragging mum or dad and older siblings to come and do this. And it seems that, and I've said this in Environmental Action Group actually, something about the curriculum in primary school is doing a great job. I'm not quite sure what happens when it moves into secondary, but I won't comment on that. And actually the kit, I just want to support what Daniel Warren has said, is the kit is amazing and I use that regularly. And I now have a kit for Tilehurst Litter Pickers, which is fabulous. And I'm actually looking at the Veolia grant to see if we can get some into the parish council, because not all parish councils have litter picking kit. And I think, you know, if a local resident knows that they haven't got to come to Newbury to collect their kit, they can actually just go to their local parish. I think that's you know, much more achievable, perhaps. The other thing on litter it won't all be about litter, I promise. I've noticed that unfortunately, due to the reduced grass cutting schedules, litter is hidden. And as soon as we've had our cut recently, it now looks like a bomb's hit it, to be perfectly frank. I have seen some council staff out trying to tackle that. But I wonder if, and I'm thinking about this in particular for my own litter picking schedules, is if we can tie in with those grass cutting schedules that we know that we need to organise a litter pick after that. Because you only need a hot, dry day with wind and it all goes everywhere. The spring clean, brilliant thing. Obviously, it's a national incentive to do that. But I wonder if we should have something also perhaps in the autumn or, other times of the year to encourage people to do it. So not just that one. And I apologise if we have others and I've missed them. The other thing I wanted to mention was the mini recycling centres. So we're really lucky that we have one in Tilehurst and one in Theale, and we've used those quite regularly. Unfortunately, the Tilehurst one, I believe the cardboard waste bin was set on fire, and we've got quite a lot of antisocial behaviour in Tilehurst at the moment. So it's been removed, and I think the plan at the moment is for it not to be put back. And I've actually seen a lot of people on social media and lots of residents saying that it's unfortunate because it was well used. The Theale one is still there, and if we can find more places for those, then I think our residents do want to be able to get rid of their large cardboard, for example, does not fit very well in our crates. And I understand that. And certainly one of the points in this paper is about people not having additional waste that they just put down by the side of the bin. Well, at the moment, perhaps they feel that they haven't got options. And I think, more mini recycling centres would be fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Mr. Warren, would you like to come back? Oh, sorry, actually, I saw Councillor Gawley's hand. Did you want to come back on that first?
There was just one quick point around the kind of education in schools. We recently ran the vehicle livery competition to kind of engage across our schools across West Berks. We had over 500 applicants to put livery on side of our new, or two of our new waste fleet in the autumn, which I think is fantastic. And I had me and many others had the tough job of trying to whittle the 20 on the shortlist down to 5, which was good. I mean, seeing some of the kind of engagement from, I mean, that was both primary and secondary, wasn't it? Was really positive, and it's kind of one of those fairly quick wins that we can do to get people to at least think about it, and it was really positive to see. So I wanted to highlight that and thank those that took part.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your questions, Councillor Stewart. Yeah, we love the educational visits, and we do more. So if anyone's out there wants any, do get in touch with us here at the council. We have an officer dedicated to doing that. And in terms of the litter picking kits, we'll see what we can do to enhance that maybe in the strategy and look at providing kits to parishes. We have done something similar in the past. So we can look at that again. And I'll certainly be in touch with the colleagues in countryside to make sure any areas that are where the grass is cut and there is litter in the way, they're letting us know so we can action and get there as soon as possible. Because it shouldn't be left in a state after that. In terms of the MRCs, yeah, it's been a bit of a shame at Tilehurst. We tried to move it. Haven't been able to move it anywhere, but we'll probably keep it in the same location. But the card bank won't be returning. You can, I know the card won't fit in the boxes we provide, but you can fold up card as long as it's not bigger, taller or wider than your wheelie bin. You can leave it out for collection, and the crews will pick it up if you can. I think similar in the strategy does also mention we will look to get CCTV if possible at some of our mini recycling centres, because it is they're also a hotbed for fly tipping as well, which we want to cut out. I hope that answers your questions.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I've got some questions also. I was just wondering, is it possible for us to have soft plastic collection in the town centres and also at the mini recycling centres? I know that the supermarkets do it at the moment, and we have the recycling bins in places like the Kennet Centre. I was just wondering if it's practically possible for us to do the soft recycling as well, because people might put crisp packets in, for example. Also, on page 69 of the agenda pack, it talks about food and garden waste being mixed at the depot and turned into soil conditioner. But as we know, we separate garden waste and food waste at the curbside. So I was just wondering, is there a contradiction there that we then refer to how it's all mixed together? One might ask, well, why can't we just mix it together at the curbside? So you might want to answer that. There are suggestions in there about using lids or nets. I would suggest nets are probably not a good idea because we know that they're a threat to wildlife. They get caught up around birds, hedgehogs, etc. And I don't know how practical they would be. They'd probably blow away and yeah. And I was also going to ask about it mentions in there that bins are provided by Veolia. My understanding is that the bin contract is with a company called Continental. And I know that there was some disquiet amongst parish councils about the contract. So Frilsham, for example, they had CCTV footage of the guys turning up to the club room and then driving away again without emptying the bin. And my understanding is that they've asked to pull out of the contract as a result. So I'm just wondering, have we considered in the long term what we do around that? Because I know that it mentions in here we'd quite like to encourage parishes to take on bins. But if some parishes do that and others don't, that presumably is going to undermine economies of scale and make it more difficult for us to put out a contract to tender with a company like Continental because fewer parish councils actually want to do it. So have we done some thinking around how that will work practically? And I'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Culver. In terms of soft plastics, part of the government's legislation, that part of simpler recycling is to include that as part of our curbside collections by 2027. So we'll seek to make sure we can do by that time. There's nothing imminent at the moment in terms of that, I'm afraid, but we will make sure we're there when we need to in 2027. In terms of garden and food waste, yes, you're right, it is mixed at Padworth. But we do have, obviously, if you're keeping it separate, food waste is collected weekly. And our garden waste service is kind of spec'd and resourced to collect garden waste. So we do request that it is kept separate from the curbside, although it may not seem sensible. It could have an adverse impact if it isn't. And you noted your comments around nets. We've had similar feedback from other councils. And then Continental, I believe, are the countryside contractors, so aren't anything to do with the waste team and our waste contract at Veolia. So any parish councils that are looking to get their litter bins emptied, they will be with Veolia. We have a couple of parishes already.
If I may, yeah, Continental, their main sort of work for us is cutting the grass. So bin emptying and dog bins they do as well, but that's relatively small part of their work. So it's not economy of scale in that respect with Continental isn't really an issue because the main bulk of work is the grass cutting around the district.
Thank you. Kofi.
Thank you, Chair. If I may add something small to the why do we collect food and garden waste separately at the curbside when during treatment they are mixed back together? Just to add a bit more context to it, first of all, the government in its analysis has found that by collecting them separately, you capture larger volumes of the two material streams. So in their strategy documents, it's something that they recommend council should continue doing. Secondly, to say that a big aspect of waste and resource management is behavior modification for householders. When they are collected together, householders do not clearly see how much food waste they are wasting or throwing away. And studies have shown that when people participate in separate food waste collections for a year or more, they begin to realize more than ever before that they are throwing away a lot more food than they had realized, and therefore they change their purchasing behavior and actually buy what they need for their families. So it's good for the environment that way. Thirdly, because currently our garden waste service is chargeable, that option to mix at the curbside only exists for customers of the garden waste service. And if the get logged into that behavior pattern, then it means that in the year that they no longer wish to pay for the garden waste service, they find it hard then to go back to separating their food waste for collection. So there are multiple reasons why we will strongly recommend that people should use their separate food waste bin wherever practicable. And finally, to add that one way, the best way for treating separately collected food waste is to take it to anaerobic digestion facilities as opposed to composting, which we do mainly because we have an existing built composting facility on our doorstep, so it's the most efficient way for us. However, in the distant future, post the PFI contract, it could be an option for us to send food waste to an AD facility. And the benefit there is food waste can be converted into digestates for soil improvement, similar to what composting does. But critically, energy can be generated from the biomethane that is generated from the food degradation, and that is significantly more beneficial for carbon reduction. So it gives us multiple options to do it the way we are doing. So we'd ask residents and all stakeholders to really trust the process, as the saying goes, that there's some logic behind what we are doing, and we thank them for continuing to participate enthusiastically in the separate food waste service. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you very much. Very useful explanation. Great. Are there any other questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, officers. Thank you, Councillor Gawley. Much appreciated. Thank you for your work. Mr. Oliver would have captured our concerns, suggestions, etc., and I'm sure the officers will have done so too. So thank you very much indeed for your time, and thank you, members, for your questions. The final version will be going to executive for approval later in the summer. Thank you. No? Okay.
It's intended to go to public consult, go through the reporting process and then go to public consultation.
Okay.
So it probably, hopefully in the spring, I think it'll come back to the executive for final approval.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Great. You don't need to stay, gentlemen, unless you really want to. Okay. Thank you very much. So item 7, 2023-24 performance report. Catalin is joining us online. Hello, Catalin. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you would like to make your presentation, there's just 2 points here. We need to note the progress made in delivering the Council Strategy Delivery Plan for 23-27, maintaining a strong outcome for the majority of the measures and remedial actions taken where appropriate, where performance is below target. And we also are asked to note, consider the remedial actions, including requests to update, reprofile measures and targets agreed by the Council to help assess performance, pending the Council's approval of the annual refresh of the delivery plan. I'm sure it makes perfect sense. So, Catalin, without further ado, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'm Catalin Bogos, the Performance Research and Consultation Manager for West Berkshire Council. I'm introducing the performance report for Q4, so the position as at the end of March 2024, to inform the Commission about the progress made in delivering the Council strategy. This report is considered now by the Scrutiny Commission before being reviewed in detail again by the Executive Committee at their meeting next week. I will briefly comment on 4 aspects: the external context measures, the overall performance against the priorities and outcomes of the Council strategy, then some details about the performance of some of the measures in the Council strategy delivery plan, and finally, the internal context. So firstly, the external contextual measures. Overall, the economy remains strong based on the statistics that we have around the employment rate and unemployment being low, empty business properties remaining stable, and increase in the sales of parking tickets in West Berkshire managed car parks. We are monitoring, though, increasing the average house price, and then looking at the trend, quite significant, of reducing planning applications. They reduce constantly over the last 4 quarters. For the social care domain, we are continuing to experience pressures from demand for children and adult social care services, even if the trend somewhat has reduced currently, but we are still has reduced since Q2 when it peaked, but I think we are still at levels well above the pre-COVID times. Something to note in this area is the increasing demand of adult social care clients requiring long-term support services. And then we heard in the previous items, antisocial behavior, we also had some increase in the first-time entrance into the youth justice system. This is being investigated by Thames Valley Police. The number of crimes, domestic abuse, have been reducing overall around all ages of offenders, perpetrators. For the environment domain, the wet weather conditions have seen contributed to a higher number of highway-related third-party claims. But the good news is that the number of claims settled or paid is very low, and it was only 1 actually in the Q4. We are highlighting increased usage of the library service, and staff there with their promotional campaigns and engagement had a key contribution on that. I will move now to the second point briefly around the overall performance. And you can see in the report on paragraph 5.10, our sunburst diagram. I will bring it on the screen, if I may, very quickly to have a look at it. So this sunburst diagram is produced automatically by our performance management system. It shows that in the inner circle, that 2 out of the 5 priority areas were RAG rated green, on schedule or delivered, and 3 RAG rated at red. That tells us that in these 3 areas, the performance overall on average is more than 5% variance from the overall targets. I will make the analogy maybe that the performance management system is producing performance intelligence similar to a dashboard of a car. Some items turning red, some amber, and some green. And it does the job to prompt us to look into the details. And of course, as a result, as the performance officer for the council, I did look at the details. And if I can share another perspective on the performance measures, on the background of a very challenging financial context, and as I said before, increasing demand, the overall percentage of measures red, amber, green, in the way we used to report them and look at them before having this performance measurement system, is similar. The way had always between 60–75% of measures green, and then about a third being RAG rated red. So in that context, we are reporting overall similar performance. And again, the sunburst diagram is prompting us to look into why is it that some of the priorities in the inner circle and some of the outcomes overall in the outer circle are RAG rated red. And looking at measures from a different perspective, this chart is showing the 5 priorities, and you see the circle legend there, red, amber, red and green. It shows how many measures in each area we have green or red. And the system is prompting us to look at prosperous and resilient West Berkshire, because even if we have 18 measures at green, we have 4 that are dragging the average down more than opportunities for all priority, where we have 20 measures green and 13 just under target. So that's the picture overall in terms of the how we are performing. We do look into details online, and we know that all of us can go online from the link in the report or from searching on a search engine West Berkshire Council performance, and we see each performance of each priority with the measures, red, amber, and green, and we can look at situations where we have, for example, red measures because targets have been missed, because in this case, some staff had to refocus on duties. And if we look, in fact, we're talking about small numbers that impact on the average measure to be significantly under target. For example, in this case, we had 35 young people attending involving work experience, comparing with a target of 40. Or another example here, percentage of public questions at formal meetings responded within 5 working days. We had 7 questions, 6 responded on time, and 1 of them was responded late by 1 day. So we need to treat this overall judgment with some curiosity and investigation. I will highlight now a few other aspects as I mentioned before. So the report shows that we have a number of achievements that we are promoting at the end of the quarter. The peer challenge successfully completed, highlighting strengths of the council, and they bring 11 recommendations. The action plan in response to this will go to the executive meetings next week. And if the chairman of the scrutiny commission will want, we can add it to the agenda, that action plan in response to the peer challenge recommendation for a scrutiny meeting. Non-domestic rates collected achieved the target. Reintroducing neighborhood notification letters have completed on time. School holiday sessions, including lunch, in the context of the pressure that I mentioned before, over target. Some schemes to help residents get cheaper solar panels and green energy were implemented as planned. Funding for community recovery and rural businesses were implemented. Reduced the number of posts filled by agency staff to help the council's financial position. Strong performance on our children's services, both in the prevention area and statutory intervention, despite, again, high level of demands and high financial pressures. Cycling route completed. Targets achieved around flood prevention schemes, pothole repairs, and quality of our roads. Introduce a demand responsive service, and return Faraday Road football ground to a bookable grass pitch. Highlighting some reds as well. And I'm not going to highlight everything because, as I said, I looked through the details and some of them are explained by small numbers, missing a response to something by 1 day and other things like that. But the significant ones that I put forward, total revenue spend variation compared with the net budget was estimated at the time of reporting at 3.5 million. Overspent, showing that the additional financial control measures have prevented further increase from previous quarters when we identify these pressures. Another one to highlight, the number of verified rough sleepers has increased more than we wanted and our target, and there are explanations in the report. And the increase here in West Berkshire mirrors, unfortunately, the trend at the national level. The education attainment results for last academic year, we finally have the confirmed results from Department of Education. In some areas, we are below target, but in some of them, we actually maintain a similar level as for previous year, and we are better than the national average. We have mirrored the national trends in the results, and whilst we set up targets to improve and to achieve better and to as a threshold to maintain in the top quartile nationally, because everyone nationally declined in performance this academic year, we have declined as well. And whilst our performance against the target, the actual value target, looks like we underperform, we have still remained in the top quartile nationally. There are, though, for education attainment, in particular around the attainment gap for disadvantaged pupils, there are challenges that we continue to struggle with. And then finally, I'm highlighting development projects that have been delayed. Details about these RAG-rated measures and the others are available from the performance portal, as I illustrated a little bit earlier. Where services were unable to achieve some of the targets agreed by the Council as part of the Council strategy delivery plan approval, which happened in October last year, we have remedial actions or alternative plans put forward which are reflected in Appendix B. And finally, internal context focuses on the financial measures covered above, and also a reduction on agency staff, which is good news. Some information was not available around staff turnover and absence, as we as an organization, we moved to a new HR system, and colleagues responsible for reporting HR information have been deployed to implement successfully. They managed to do it by the end of the quarter, the new system. Now, I'm happy to take any questions before asking the Commission to note the report, to note the performance, and also to note the actions and updates provided on areas of underperformance.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bogas. Do members have any questions or comments to make? Councillor McKinnon.
I have several comments to make about this report. They're not necessarily directed at Catalin. I don't know if Councillor Brooks is online to take questions on this.
No, apparently not.
That's fine. So, Catalin, I mean, you can listen to this. I'm sure this isn't down to you, but this is not a performance report, colleagues. This is a report with instructions to click on a website and make several clicks to find a performance report. Where's the list of council strategy KPIs with performance against them described? As Catalin said, they're on the performance portal. There are several clicks required to find out what's going on, and it is not the most intuitive thing to do. It's not transparent enough for residents. I would say it's not transparent enough for the committee either. Some of us might want to print this report out before reading it on a train, or we might be a bit more environmentally friendly and download a copy onto our laptop and then look at it offline. If that's the case, there is no way of looking at the red, amber or green rating for many of our KPIs. There should be a report produced for this commission and the executive in the same boat here, as we used to produce, with a comprehensive list of KPIs with the performance against it clearly described. That didn't always make for comfortable reading for us as an administration previously. Don't hide behind several clicks on a website. So can I please ask for a more comprehensive list of KPIs to be included in the next report? I think that's entirely reasonable. But Catalin, as I say, I'm sure that's not your decision.
If I may to respond though,
yes.
Chairman.
Yes, please do.
So we did move from the paper version or PDF version of a long list of KPIs to produce a performance report with comments and text and explanation and details, which is the main body of the report. But we suggested to use the online platform, which is available. Yes, there are 2 clicks, I think, to reach the a particular priority or three from the report. If you start from a search engine, anyone in the world can search West Berkshire Council performance and they will find it, as opposed to in the alternative option to find some papers for a report and trying to find the appendix for that report to find performance. So we consider that we work hard to make it more accessible to residents and to the public and to members. In addition, by having access to the online platform, which you can access on a laptop, on a tablet, you can even access on a mobile phone if you really want. And it offers the reader a lot more detail to investigate red, amber, greens, trends and comments and targets and results each quarter, much more than we were able to produce in the appendix report. However, I do hear the request and recommendation that it will be useful to produce that list, which is very easy to produce again from this system, and to attach it to the paper. So I will take this note and I will put it forward to be actioned. So thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you, Kathleen. And through you again, Chairman. Kathleen, you're right, it's 3 clicks, but then you get to a list of council priorities and then you need to click on each one. That then takes you into a list. You showed us a screen of it before, and then you need to click onto each KPI. I simply disagree with you completely that is more accessible to residents, and indeed us, than it was before, where we had an admittedly long report, but at least it was all there. But I don't intend to sit here and get into an argument with you, Kathleen, but I'll make my request to the chairman and I'll make it to the leader, and thanks for your response.
Okay, can I just say, do other members have a view on this? Councillor Pattenden.
Yeah, I remember those long reports with the microscopic fonts very well, seeing all of the issues that there were and all the performance statistics that were being presented by the previous administration. Those weren't accessible reports in any way. No one would print off. I mean, how many pages were there? There were tens, maybe hundreds of pages. No one's going to print that off and spend their time on a train journey going through that.
I would.
Well, to the exception that proves the rule. Right. That for me, Councillor McKinnon, you know, this system is very transparent. It's very presentable. It's presented in a compelling graphic way. Maybe there are, maybe it's a system with some refinements that can be implemented. I don't know. That's for the portfolio holders to respond on. But personally, I think this is a considerable improvement over what there was before.
Thanks for your comment, Councillor Pattenden. From my point of view, and I mean this completely sincerely, this looks like the administration's hiding. It's hiding its performance behind a click and another click and another click. If I'm a resident, and I'm thinking about residents here rather than myself, if I'm a resident and I go onto West Berkshire's website and I want the performance report for Q4, I want to click on that report, download it, print it off, whatever. I want to be able to see the performance. I cannot do that from here. And in fact, can I just make a point? Appendix A, performance and pictures. Let's all have a look at that right now, please, colleagues. Appendix A, performance and pictures. That would appear to be the summary of the performance of the council in pictures. That's on page 109. I've got 9 squares, one of which is a heading. Soil conditioner, giveaway success in March. Lido opened in March. Let's Get Active Fund, grants available. Open Digital Planning Service launched. 2024-25 budget approved. Thermal sensors installed. Mugga opened in Towerhurst. And support for those affected by flooding. Is that a good summary of the performance of the council? Q4? No, that's spin.
Okay.
That's spin.
Councillor Mathorage and then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chairman. From my perspective, I see this report as a summary which gives the gist of what achievements are and the not so good achievements. And Mr. Bogus has clearly highlighted the aspects of this, the key points. In terms of, I would look at this way, Councillor McKinnon. If you see 5.10, that is 5.10, the graph, on contrary, it's not hiding it. It is plainly clear that there are red areas against the council strategies. When I look at the detail, I was going to comment to Mr. Bogus. He has not helped himself or his team to highlight the achievements more than the drawbacks, because the system is picking up the red areas and it's showing overall red. Rather, if you see, there are more greens in the tackling the climate change in the overall in the report. So it is more of, for me, green rather than red, but in the overall the pie chart it's red. So I don't know why Mr. McKinnon is saying, Councillor McKinnon is saying that the administration is hiding, rather than the administration is.
Where's the detail on the red, Councillor?
Sorry,
let me not be interrupted.
Finish?
Yeah, so let me not be interrupted. So what I feel is this report is just giving a summary for us as a scrutiny commission to go into the details further from the report, to ask for specific details, and that we can scrutinize further. In terms of the other aspects, in terms of what Mr. Bogus mentioned, is like where they are underperformance, or I would rather call it as missed opportunities, missed areas. I think those are the ones we would like to be seen in the next report against this Q4 performance, how the improvement has been achieved. And if there are no improvements, that is where I think we as Scrutiny Commission to ask for. I think this is a good start. In my view, I'm not talking about it as an administration or anything, because this is a good summary in terms of where we have not performed better and where we have performed better. And the questions for us as a Scrutiny Commission is, what are the lessons, where we've missed those opportunities to improve, and how to improve. And those are the things which I would like to see in the next report and scrutinize and questions that one. So to Councillor McKinnon, I think it's individual perspective. To some people want to see more graphs and numbers and all those ones. But for me, from a background of IT, they are all important. They are not to be hidden anywhere, but the summary is more than sufficient to highlight and scrutinize for this commission. Yeah.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I think the suggestion that Mr. Bogus has put forward is possibly a good idea, and I would suggest that we see what that looks like the next time around and see if it does actually assist others with the information. I had one question about Appendix D, which is the influencer measures dashboard. And I wonder what it's telling us, because we've got period actual and we've got year-to-date actual, but we haven't got anything to compare it against to perhaps previous year. And I wonder if that might be quite useful as we have this table here. I think I'd like to be able to see what we're looking at in comparison. Yeah, I think having both options might be a good way to go.
Mr. Bogas, would you like to come back on some of those points before I move on?
Yeah, I take note, and we will see how we can put on in the report somewhere the historic information. Again, I will, if I may, Chairman, I will just briefly share the screen to say that all that information is available in there for areas that you will want to explore. So if you look at the top of the website, you have the 5 priorities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have the measures of volume. I clicked on the measure of volume. You have the economy, and then measures, social care, and measures, and so on. And if you want to see what happened with a measure, because it's of interest, and remember, these are measures that are not targeted. They give us the context. It's measures that sometimes we influence. So you click on the measures, and you have the entire trend from June 2022, for example. You click again, and you have in a 2 clicks, all the details about the year-to-date results, the period results, how it worked on a actual year-to-date performance, how it worked against the last year. You can put it on. So all that stuff is there, but we've been criticized in the past that we had lots and lots and lots of appendices, never ending, and it was I think the expression was not seeing the woods for the trees. And now we are making available on 3 levels of understanding of performance. One is a strategic view, and that sunburst diagram is showing us a picture to look at performance in one view to understand what is happening. Then in the system, when we look at each priority, we see the view from the top of the mountain or tactical view, where I pick one priority and I scroll down to say, oh, there are some reds and some greens for this outcome. There are some greens for that outcome, some reds and greens for that outcome, very easily without having to read pages and pages of reports. And if you are very curious to say, oh, what is happening with this area? I just click on more information and it gives me the details of, look, this is what happened and I want to see the numbers. There is a comment as well here to explain what happened for the last quarter. And I really want to understand the details. And I, again, click on the details and I see everything online available in the ways that we were not able to do on a paper document. So yes, sorry for the long response, but trends are available. Previous information, you can put both or one of them on the chart, and you can investigate in minute detail. But for performance officers, it's very challenging to convey to the members, decision makers, the public, a complex picture in as simple terms as possible. So that's why we get the 3 layers approach. High level in the main body of the report with some comments, tactical level, the next level down online, and minute detail, everything level available to explore in some areas of concern or area of success if you want to investigate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bogas. And I just want to thank you for the detail that you've just given us and for the work that you've done on this, because there's obviously a lot of work that's gone into it. I would suggest maybe some kind of happy medium could be agreed, where there is perhaps a longer report that people could download if they wish to. We've talked before about the need to make sure we have communications for different audiences. Digital will work for some people, something that they can print off will work for somebody else. Councillor McKinnon made the point about the 9 boxes. Maybe if we could flesh that out a bit more into something that people could download if they wished to, that would be useful. I have seen Councillor Stewart's hand. I'll go back to you because you asked the most recent question, and then back to Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Chair. It was about the influencer measures dashboard, Kathleen, and I know you and I have been through many of these reports over many years, so I completely appreciate trying to squash everything into a report is extremely difficult. And to be perfectly honest, you will never win. We all know this. But anyway, you mentioned about this data is available. Well, my question back to you would be, why have you provided this summary then, if you can't actually just pop in what the previous year is? Because you said on other reporting you've got there, you're not doing a summary, you're telling us to go to find it. And you've just said to me that for this one, I should go into the system and find what last year's information was. So why have you provided Appendix D? I don't understand the difference there. There seems to be a contradiction. If it's about space and getting it in, I can sort of understand that, but it just feels like there's a contradiction.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Bogas.
Thank you. I will take the points. I'll take the recommendation. We can please everyone. It's actually quite easy and simple. So thank you for highlighting that to us. Information is there. It's a matter of PDFing and adding it to the report. And yes, I take the point in terms of consistency. We're doing it for the contextual measures. Yeah, we can do it for the performance measures. Absolutely no problem. I will take that on board and act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKinnon, if you want to come back, and then Councillor Sumner had a question as well. But let's not labour too much over this.
No, I'm not going to. I've got a different point. Thank you, Chairman. Just on that point, thank you, Kathleen, for all that. It's in no way intended to be a criticism against you. I would just observe that if the previous administration had made this change, I guarantee the Liberal Democrat councillors would have been up in arms about it. But well, we'll never know, will we? I guarantee it, it's certain. I want to look at Appendix B, please, point 6 on page 112. And I noted this with great interest. I've not seen it publicised much, hidden away in an appendix, but the Department for Transport have responded to the pedestrianisation proposal for Newbury Town Council, for Newbury Town Centre. And given objections from the police, the Department for Transport have requested that consultation be carried out before the experimental traffic regulation order is implemented. I am absolutely delighted with this news. It's what I and my colleagues were urging the administration to do all along. And it's just quite sad that the administration required a direction from government before deigning to ask our residents their views on this major change. There's a theme developing here with this administration, attempting to do things that they don't have the competency to do. Firstly, with the executive trying to change the commercial property strategy when they didn't have the competence to do so, trying to change or withdraw the local plan before being told no by the government, and now this pedestrianisation without consultation. It's not a good look. And I would urge the administration, do you know what? Sometimes it's worth listening to your opposition members. We've been around the block a few times. Some of us a few more times than others. And on the odd occasion, believe it or not, sometimes we know what we're talking about. Thanks, Chairman.
Mr. Bogas, did you want to come back on that issue of the pedestrianisation on page 112? Do you feel able to comment on that specifically, or is that something to pass on to people working in that area?
I believe that the comment that was read, I think it says it provides the detail necessary, so there is no additional information on that in terms of why was not possible to deliver by the deadline, by the target, and what is being done about it. So I don't have anything to add to that, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. This is something we need to take up with executive members. Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, but I want to go back to the sunburst chart. It was the one question that I did have down. And even with my limited colours, I can look at a segment having one green, one amber, and one red cannot be anything better than amber. Now, Kathleen, I absolutely take on board everything you've said, that is not three things that are making it up. So my suggestion, if it can be done, is that outer circle contains the volume and therefore the weighting of what you are trying to portray in that. If green is indicating 80% of success, then make that outer circle 80% of success, because that is exactly the issue with portraying this. And you cannot look at that chart and see anything but negative. I don't care what anybody opposite or sitting at the end of the table says. You cannot look at something which has got 5 segments, 3 of which are red, and say it's positive. No, absolutely no. So if your indicator and your summary is the inner circle, if your indicator is the outer circle, make the outer circle reflect the picture. And that is the only way that you will get a concise story that one graph will allow you to portray for the rest of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the recommendation. I will take it on board and we'll find a solution for that. One alternative is to put the actual third segment to show you how many measures are actually green and how many are red in each subsegment. But leave that with me. We'll investigate and we'll come back with a solution. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I do have some questions, but I don't know, Mr. Bogas, whether you'll be able to answer them. It's unfortunate we don't have an executive member with us this evening that can answer some of these. 5.18, where we talk about rough sleepers. I'm just wondering, do we know what's happening with the Housing First scheme that we decided to implement a few years ago now, and how that is helping with the rough sleepers? And also 5.20, we mentioned about empty homes. Now, I'm very conscious at the moment that there are quite a few empty sovereign properties, and I realise that we don't have any control over sovereign, but I myself, and I'm sure other councillors, have heard from residents who are very concerned about the number of empty properties. And I know a number of them are being offloaded, for want of a better word, probably because they need a lot of money spending on them to renovate them. So rather than renovate them, they're getting rid of them. And obviously we have a shortage of housing. So I don't know if you've got any comment to make on that and how we can turn that situation around. And then my final question is around the local transport plan in 5.25. It says that's been put back for a year. I'm just wondering why that is. Is it just because of a lack of guidance from central government, or are there other factors? And please don't feel pressured to answer that if you don't feel able to. It might be that we have to refer that to executive. Thank you.
I don't think I have to hand very quickly all the information that you asked. I know that for housing, there are initiatives across the council to use some of our assets to help in that area. And local plan, I think we can find quickly a comment on the system. If you don't mind to tell me again the paragraph number.
I've got 5.20 for empty homes, but just looking at that, I'm just wondering if I've got the right paragraph. Oh yeah, sorry, it does. Yeah, develop a strategy to bring back empty homes into use. And the target date is 31st of March 24.
42. Okay.
I'm just wondering how much influence we've got over that, bearing in mind that a lot of the homes are actually owned and run by Sovereign.
I'm trying quickly to see if I can. So what we know in terms of the details around that, and I'm looking on the system, that action was delayed due to operational resourcing issues during 23-24. So it's our ability to allocate workforce to officers to deal with that. And then there is a proposed change of target from March 24 to March 25. That's the explanation that we collect and we have from officers.
Okay, it's probably something we need to take up with you.
So it's a delay due to the staffing capacity issue to do everything, and has been reprioritized.
And then regarding the local transport plan in 5.25.
5.25. One second. So for local transport plan, we are progressing as far as we can in our preparation and consultation for our part of the plan. The central government have not yet issued their guidance to local authorities. So because we don't have yet the guidance to progress with that, the suggestion is to change the target from March 24 to March 25.
Okay, so it is down to central government then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I think some of these issues, Mr. Oliver, if you're taking a note of the discussion, we probably need to take up with members of the executive separately. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so no vote is required on this unless members wish to formally make any recommendations to executive. I think one would be to send a member of the executive to be here for the discussion. And then finally, Catalin, I just want to thank you. I understand that you will be leaving West Berkshire Council imminently, and this is the last opportunity we'll have to invite you to this meeting and talk about your important work. So I just want to thank you on behalf of Scrutiny Commission for all your excellent work and your service to the council.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I will pass the thanks as well to my team, because behind what you see here is a small team of dedicated colleagues that are making this possible here. So thank you, much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Great. Okay, thank you. Item 8, revenue, financial performance, provisional outturn. Joseph Holmes, are you going to introduce this one?
Yes, fine to introduce it. So this is the outturn position for the 23-24 financial year. You can see as the Scrutiny Commission has been looking at this during the past 12 months. So you can see that the outturn is not in a dissimilar position to has been reported at quarters 2 and 3, though there's been some ups and downs in different areas in here. So hopefully that's not a huge surprise, but it does highlight the significant financial stresses that the council's under, and as has been highlighted, our general fund balance does stand at below the minimum level, and that was articulated in the full council budget papers as well. I just want to say that there is one typo in here, which is on page 130. We have not moved 338 posts from agency to permanent. It's 33. So my apologies, there was a rogue 8 on the end. So my apologies on that one. But that aside, this report is here for the Commission to note.
Thank you. Councillor Cottingham, did you want to speak on this as well?
Yeah, just a few words from my perspective is that, as you can see by the numbers, that the provision overspend is 3.1 million, which gives us a general fund of 4 million as of the year end, which is equivalent of 8 days of reserves. As Joseph has alluded to, that the recommended minimum level is actually 2 weeks, i.e. 14 days. That's still, from my perspective, quite a tight number of days to have reserves. I would, from my own perspective, at least have a month's worth. As you can see by the report, significant pressure of overspend in people, adult social care, children and family services, home to school transport. Also, during the year, significant reduction in agency spend from a 12 million run rate down to 9.5 million in 23-24. And now through the FRP weekly meetings, it's roughly £150,000 per week. So we're looking at around about 9.5 mil, about 7 mil for that, for a spend. For this financial year, we're looking to make sure we get roughly £14 million worth of savings. So again, quite significant pressure on us trying to find savings in West Berkshire. Part of what we're also looking to improve the budget setting process and also monitoring our performance is moving to what we call activity-based costing. So this is all about understanding what the unit costs of delivery are for our key services, what the units are, and benchmarking those to see if we are getting better value or benchmarking those costs. So we've done an initial piece of work already on some of our higher cost base. So re-enablement is a good one, which came through the budget process of driving down cost, and that has also significantly driven down the projected cost in 24-25. So very much 24-25 is about prevention, reduce our cost base, improve our financial efficiency of delivering superb services at the lowest unit cost for the residents of West Berkshire. So really all about ensuring we are delivering appropriate value and not wasting money on behalf of our residents and council taxpayers.
Thank you both for that. Members, do you have questions and comments? Councillor McKinnon.
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks, Councillor Cottingham and Mr. Holmes for that report. Ian, this is still my budget, isn't it, that we're reporting against? So I don't have too many questions other than to say that my wife does provide very competitively priced consultancy on activity-based costing, if you want to bear her in mind. No, I listened with great interest to what you had to say there, and I wouldn't disagree with any of it. It's a difficult situation that you're in. I thought you described it very fairly. So no, as always, here to support you if you need it, and all the best.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you. Councillor Cottam.
Thank you. I'd just like to congratulate the executive on actually reducing the agency costs from 12 to 9 million. I don't think that was quite in the previous budget, but there we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chair. Just as Mr. Holmes so kindly highlighted the box, I just want to be clear that £500,000 saving on agency to whole-time equivalent, is that the difference between what the cost was in comparison and offset against the whole-time equivalent with all on costs? It is literally the difference between having them full-time and what we would have been paying over and above for agency.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's sort of the budgeted post versus then the agency cost that we receive. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, I've got some. Yeah, I also pass on my thanks to Councillor Cottingham and Mr. Holmes for the work that they've done on this, and also the financial review panel more broadly. I just wonder, do we have any kind of understanding of, we're making investment in transformation, so we're spending a certain amount of money on that. What is the return on that going to be? So, yeah. Councillor, sorry, Mr. Holmes.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Chair. So every year, as part of the budget papers, we pull together our flexible use of capital receipts paper, and so in there it sets out some of the transformation programmes and some of the sort of projected savings through there. So, for example, one in sort of previous budgets, which we continue to fund, is where we have provided through in Children and Family Services an enhanced so recruitment and retention payments to then try to reduce the number of agency costs. And I think that's been a really successful example of transformation where you see into this report and other reports, the level of agency in children and families has gone down from 34% to, I think at the moment, it's either 12 or 14% now. So that investment has really paid back relatively quickly. Other schemes that we've got around looking at repurposing some of our different assets for example Walnut Close around different work with children's and families. That has that's had a really swift expected payback on reducing other costs. So we have in that document where we think what the payback will be on different schemes. Some will be longer, and it all it matches in line with sort of what the government says around transformational activity. I'm always looking at new schemes that can come through that we can fund new activity to try and drive down costs or avoid future costs coming through, or enhance digitisation, for example, as well, to help support what the council does.
Okay, so we're quite confident we're going to get a good return on that, basically. Will we have, going forward, we'll have clear figures of Scrutiny Commission about how that's had an impact?
Yes, and that paper, it goes to full council every year as well. So it was one for sort of February time to have a look at, and we do a backward look as well as a forward look to say, okay, this is what we think is going to happen in the future, and this is what's happened previously.
Great, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Councillor Cottingham.
Yeah, it's something which we're very, very aware of, return on investment, making sure we do have the appropriate payback, making sure it does any investment in transformation, best to save, does deliver. And the past, we're trying to put that level of scrutiny and awareness, and also, what is that hurdle rate of making sure that there is a thorough process in place. It's not a finger in the edge of it. It's actually, there is real pounds behind this. If we are investing in a particular idea, which may be digitalisation, by providing, I don't know, staff in the field with an iPad, for example, will that improve their efficiency and effectiveness of getting more customers, more residents served, for example. So it's these types of ideas which we're looking to have that almost return on capital employed, to make sure that we do have that robust scrutiny, that the decisions are made which do deliver better value.
Great, thank you very much for that. I know in the past we've talked at full council about the future of the care homes, and I think the decision was made after the public consultation that we wouldn't offload the care homes straight away. Have you got any update about what might be happening with that? Because that would be a way of saving money, presumably from the council's point of view.
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you on that. So in the budget papers, what was included in there was to look at what alternative provision there could be for care homes. there was one proposal in there which was potentially to stop providing care at a care home. So that wasn't included, but what was included in the budget papers was, could alternative providers provide care facilities, and we're actually looking at that and what options we have there in the very near future.
Okay, so we look forward to finding out more about that in due course then. Okay, one other thing that I wanted to raise, it came to my attention a couple of days ago that the Schools Forum had a discussion about clawing back money from local primary and secondary maintained schools. We know we've got the black hole with the SEND and high needs block, and obviously there's an incentive to deal with that situation. I have made a lot of phone calls around this to try and find out what's happening. I had a brief conversation with Councillor Cottingham before the meeting began. I'm conscious that it's obviously a very complex area. I've been told that we're not allowed to call it in because the Schools Forum make decisions and then those decisions are binding. They don't get signed off by portfolio holders, for example. However, having said all of that, I am quite concerned, at least one of the schools, Down School, which is in my ward, so I declare an interest, they've raised more than £700,000 independently over the last 3 years from parents and other donors, and they're being told that they're going to have £490,000 clawed back. That to me would seem unjust. Perhaps there might be mechanisms to claw back money that the council has given to schools, but I don't understand why it is that we can take money that they've raised independently. My understanding is that it wasn't calculated like that in the past. That kind of independently raised money was excluded from the calculation, so you might want to comment on that. And second to that, are there any other services at the council who should be aware that they might also be subject to a clawback? And bear in mind, this is in year. So council has democratically decided on the budget and voted on that, and now this is being done in year. So are any other services likely to find that some of their funds, which they're relying upon, are suddenly going to be clawed back to fill deficits?
So thank you very much, Chair. During the course of this meeting, there is an email on its way to yourself explaining the situation, which I have reviewed. So part of what's been explained to myself is the understanding that any monies which are raised separately, i.e. by PTA, is ring-fenced in a separate account. So it's not subject to clawback.
Okay, right.
So if that particular school has moved the money into the general account, it would be. The school should be having that money in a separate account, which ring-fence it from any other spend, any other clawback.
Okay.
That's the understanding which has been relayed to me this evening.
Okay, so I'm getting an email about that, am I?
You are.
Okay.
You're getting an email letter, which it's on its way, which I know Heather is in the process of sending.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm also aware that there's a school in Councillor Stewart's ward and also in Councillor Pemberton's ward that are affected. I don't know whether they had money that they'd raised themselves or whether it's completely local authority money that's being clawed back. But yeah, it does affect more than one ward. Mr. Holmes.
Yeah, so it's not local authority money, it's money which comes through into the dedicated schools grant money, so it's schools money, and as Councillor Cottingham said, I'd be very surprised if it's including like PTA funds as a part of that. Do you have a question around other clawbacks elsewhere? Often where it will depend on the grant that comes through from central government as to what mechanisms there are in place there. Generally, when we get provided as a council with sort of funds from central government, we try to maximise our expenditure through those as they come through. That will be, though, for the new government to determine what's happening on a range of grants. So, some of those are proposed to stop relatively soon. So the Household Support Fund, for instance, it's due to end at the end of September, and that's one which has had quite a lot of national scrutiny over the last few years. So it will be for new government to determine what is happening with some of those grants, or if there'll be new grants or more or less. Lots of that is unknown at the moment.
Okay, so before I come to Councillor McKinnon, adult social care, for example, is there money that we've given to that area, which is also under stress, that the council might be saying to adult social care, actually, you can't have that money anymore, we've got to spend it somewhere else, as an example?
The funding regime is different there compared to the dedicated schools grant. So, for example, the main source of funds which come through to adult social care come through the general fund rather than a specific grant. The government does distribute some specific grants there through the sort of core social grant allocation mechanism.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McKinnon.
Thanks, Chairman. And just seeing as you brought this issue up, I know, Mr. Holmes, you and I had a conversation about this yesterday, but I just wanted to ask for the record, is it the position of the council then that as a result of this clawback, affected schools should not have to make in-year budget savings as a result of the decision made earlier this week?
That would be my view, because the funds have been funds which have been accumulated over previous financial years rather than in the what is to happen in this financial year. So those balances would have been accumulated most likely over a number of previous financial years.
Yeah, I take that. I think Councillor Cottingham's cottoned on to what I was going to say, but if a school had budgeted this year to spend some of that surplus, which is now being clawed back, then there could be a possibility of in-year savings having to be made.
Yeah, okay. I see that. When the requests were coming through to the Schools Forum, and so those papers are in the public domain, the minutes from the meeting last month as well. The mechanism that was put in was I think you agreed, was a 10% mechanism as well, which is above the general government scheme, which is at 5% and 8% respectively as well. And I think schools were requested to provide evidence as to where their sort of funding priorities were and where they had made some allocations as part of their budget setting.
And one more, please. Again, Mr. Holmes, you may or may not have this information now, but is it the case that the Schools Forum, when they made their decision this week, that heads of the affected schools were not permitted to take part in the decision?
I would have to go back and check. I was not expecting a discussion about the Schools Forum, rather more on this paper.
That's fine. Thank you.
I'll have to check that.
Okay, I can actually make a comment on that. I know that there are members of academies and also members of maintained schools on the Schools Forum, and only members from maintained schools were allowed to vote on this because it affects maintained schools. But I would raise, and we don't want to go too off topic, but my concern is that the schools affected were not allowed to vote. Now, presumably that's because we think they've got skin in the game, but I would argue the flip side of that is the other schools have also got an interest in voting in a particular way, because if they think another school's going to take the hit, then they're going to vote for that. So I think I think that's something to take up separately with Anne-Marie Dodds about the way that school forum is constituted and the way that decisions are made. And that's obviously not necessarily a discussion for the revenue budget, but I think it is something of scrutiny that we need to look into further. Okay, any other questions or comments, colleagues? Okay. Thank you very much. So no votes required on that unless members wish to make formal recommendations back to executive. Great. So moving on to capital financing, item 9. Councillor Cottingham and Mr. Holmes, would you like to present on this, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So capital performance just highlights expenditure against the against the original budget there, and as you can see, expenditure just under £48 million against the revised budget of £71 million. So quite a significant amount of reprofiling into the next financial year. I think as I've been highlighting during the previous year, our borrowing costs have gone up quite significantly. As I've sort of highlighted at the Governance Committee last week, then the Council undertook some relatively short-term borrowing. You can see them on the graphs later on with the capital financing requirement, that we do have an underlying need to undertake more borrowing over the short to medium term. We would hope to do that when times show a reduced interest rates, so that we don't get tied in to what we feel are higher interest rates at the moment for a longer period of time.
Yeah, just to reiterate that the fact that obviously we haven't been able to spend everything which was in the initial capital expenditure budget. There's been, as Mr. Holmes says, a reprofiling of roughly 23 mil into next year as such. Also, part of that is having the resources to be able to deliver these projects, and we're well aware that we're under financial pressure in getting people on board to do that. I know that we can have potentially capitalization of overheads, but not all of those costs would be able to be capitalized. Also, as we know, we have vacancies for the council to make sure that we are able to deliver. And it's, as I say, we're under financial pressure, and it's doing as much as we possibly can with the resources which we've got, in line with, as I said, the cost of capital of borrowing as well, which is roughly around about 5.5% at the moment. So longer term, we're looking, obviously waiting for interest rates to fall more in line with our weighted average long term, roughly 3.5%. So, ideally, money will become cheaper to borrow, which then allows us to improve the affordability of our capital expenditure programme.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Matharaj.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Holmes, and thank you, Councillor Contingent. As again, I mentioned this in the last meeting as well, the categorization of the capital expenditure and a reprofiling based on the service priorities of council strategy is really good to see, because where we can see where areas we're lacking. I just have a question on the business as usual section, where we have a reprofiling of 1,204 million. I think 12 million, I guess, if I'm reading it correct. Yeah. So my question is not directly on the amount, but the impact from the reprofiling. Is it from a business as usual perspective? Do you see an impact on the performance indicators? Are we going to miss any key performance KPIs as a result of reprofiling of these budget from a critical projects? Are we taking money from critical projects?
Yes, thank you, Councillor, for your share. So any changes that would have happened with reprofiling would have been in Mr. Bogos's report in effect. So that's the time through the performance there. So you can see that there's some schemes in here. So some of like the LEP, the Local Enterprise Partnership, previously the LEP schemes, which have continued to be delayed. And so those then get reflected back in the performance report, where we say, right, okay, we're going to open XYZ train station, say, and that gets moved back. So the two link together. You can see some, for example, where we might be having SEMH places say that if there's delay there could be an impact, but generally that's factored in that is going to take a longer period of time. So the two should be aligning to show any impact on performance is then reflected back in that overall performance report.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor McKinnon.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Cotting, you might be expecting me to give you a bit of a hard time here, but I'm not going to do that. The capital financing outturn was always thus, really, and which can be a bit frustrating. I'm sure you share it, and I'm sure Mr. Holmes does as well. We've got all these great schemes in the capital programme. I'm sure you found when you were presenting the budget back in March, the capital programme is the best bet. Because it's all the good news stuff. It's all the stuff we're going to do for the district, and it's all exciting and wonderful. So it is a bit frustrating when it doesn't get delivered in the timescales that we'd like. But as Councillor Cotting and Mr. Holmes described, resource constraints and various external factors make that the case. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be the case next year as well. But we try and do what we can for the district. I'm sure. And just a quick word on Councillor Cottingham. You've had your first year or so in the job. I always think that finance executive member, finance portfolio holder is by far the toughest of the executive roles. It's far harder than planning or adult social care, for instance, because you need really to have a good knowledge of the entire council machinery. So, and what I find about Councillor Cottingham, it's really annoying. He's actually a really nice bloke, which makes it difficult to give him a hard time when I would like to. So you're getting off easy tonight, Ian, although I think by the executive next week, then I might have rediscovered my mojo. But yeah, no further comments from me. It's very well explained.
Thank you. Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just thinking of this report and thinking of something that I've been watching and pushing, as have others, for some time now, is the Thiel railway station improvements. Now that the new government have decided they're going to renationalise the rail service, I would urge anybody involved with this project to be making contact with those that are determined to find this money from somewhere and make sure that that project stays on track. Yes, I did say that. And that it can actually be delivered for the people of Thiel and the surrounding area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comment on that, gentlemen? No? Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much indeed for that. So no vote is required on this. Thank you very much indeed. Good. All right, moving on. Item 10, annual scrutiny report. So you may recall that one of the recommendations of the peer challenge was to produce a scrutiny annual report. And we've moved very quickly on this. Gordon Oliver has drafted a report. I've drafted an introduction. As you will have seen from the agenda pack, it summarises all that we've done in the last year, gives a bit of detail about the topics that we've looked at. So I apologise that the timescale for this is somewhat compressed. It's been produced relatively recently and it will be going to full council tomorrow. So I would urge members also, if you want to say something tomorrow night at full council about it as well, and talk up the role of scrutiny, that would be very welcome. So I want to thank Gordon for the work that he's done on this. It's much appreciated. Do councillors have any comments on the content of the report? No.
Thank you, Chairman, except to say that commendable job to you yourself as well, running this scrutiny commission over the last year. And then thank officers for providing us inputs and data as we requested them. Thank you and well done.
Thank you, Councillor Mathage. Any other comments? Councillor Stewart.
I would echo that, but also I think what I really like in here is the fact that you've got links to some of the meetings that I've not been able to attend. So things like health scrutiny, which I'm really interested in. So it's nice to have all of it in one place and you can just go, right, that's what I want to focus on and go and look at. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. And we can have a think in the future about whether we want to produce something that's slightly different. I know that Mr. Oliver has looked at other councils and some of them produce quite flashy, interactive online stuff. So maybe we'll want to think about that. Other things I was going to mention regarding the peer review, they've also recommended having more visible leadership of scrutiny. So I'm having a meeting with Comms on Friday to talk about that. And to think about whether we can do more news stories in the residents' bulletin, social media, etc., around the role of scrutiny and the important role that we perform in checks and balances, challenging input into policy decision making, etc. There's also going to be a paper to the Constitution Review Group soon about the structure of scrutiny. My understanding, and Mr. Oliver will correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's not making any recommendations, but it is commenting on what other councils do. As we've discussed before, some other councils split their scrutiny into different subgroups. So they have one for finance, one for adult social care, one for children's family services, etc. So we obviously need to keep an eye on that, and we will want to have a say in how that might be taken into effect. But that is going to Constitution Review Group. Do we know when we will get to see that and comment on it?
I imagine the papers will be the week before the meeting. I think the meeting's on the 31st of July. So yeah.
Okay.
A week before that.
Good. So we need to look out for that then. And then the other thing that peer review mentioned was having a log of recommendations that have been implemented. We obviously get feedback from executive when we make recommendations to them about various things, but how are those then followed up on, basically? And we do know that other councils have such a log, so that's something that we need to think about, I think, so that we can get the executive to feedback periodically and let us know what they've done. Because they might say, oh yes, we think that's a good recommendation, we'll do that. But then a few months later, it would be good to get an update about whether that has actually been done, and if it hasn't, the reasons as to why it's not being done. Are members happy with that? Any comments, questions? Okay, so I think we need to have a proposer that we are happy with this scrutiny report. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Sumner, seconder, Councillor Pattenden, all those in favour? Great, thank you very much, colleagues. Item 11, appointment to task and finish groups. We have discussed and agreed having a task and finish group about the sports hub. We need to decide who's actually going to be on this. I would be keen for people to let me know by the end of July if they can, because we do want to try and begin in September. The minimum is 3 members, but 5 is recommended to provide resilience and make sure that if some people can't make it to a meeting, we're still quorate. Members don't need to be members of the Scrutiny Commission. It can be anybody, any member. And members of the executive are not permitted, and neither are members who were part of the executive at the time the decision was made. So that will exclude some of our colleagues around the table. So I'm not necessarily expecting you to nominate people now unless you're ready to do so. But I would urge you to let me know by the end of this month, please, if you could. Councillor Cottam.
In my long and distant parts, I have had involvement with recreation, so I would be happy to put my name forward.
Great, thank you. Councillor Reid? Yeah, great, thank you very much. I think the recommendation, it says here membership should be politically proportionate. It says 3-1-1, so I assume that means 3 from Liberal Democrats, 1 from Conservatives and 1 from Minority Group.
I do have a member of my group in mind, but I would just need to run it past him or her.
Fair enough, thank you. I think we've already agreed previously that I will chair it, so I'm happy to do that. So that will be me from the Minority Group then. Okay, so we just need 1 other person from the Liberal Democrats then. If you want to reflect on that and get back to me, that would be much appreciated. Very good, thank you. Item 12, task and finish group updates. Councillor Dick gave his apologies for this evening. He has very ably chaired a task and finish group about COVID recovery, which concluded this week. And he has asked me to read out the following. The COVID and Recovery Task and Finish Group has completed its review and held its final meeting on Monday. A draft report has been prepared and is being circulated to relevant officers to ensure that it accurately reflects the matters discussed and the recommendations are sensible from both technical and operational perspectives. The draft report will then go to Corporate Board for legal and fact-checking before coming to Scrutiny Commission in September. If the Scrutiny Commission accepts the recommendations, then senior officers will prepare a response for presentation alongside the report to the Executive in November. I would like to thank all the officers and external witnesses who have helped us with the review and members of the task group. So my thanks to Gordon Oliver for being clerk to that task and finish group. I myself am a member of it. We had extremely interesting discussions. We did some surveys with different audiences to get their feedback. And I thought it was an excellent exercise. Do members have any comments on that? No. Okay, thank you very much. Item 13, Health Scrutiny Committee. I have something to read out from Councillor Martha Vickers, who chairs that committee. The Health Scrutiny Committee met on the 11th of June 2024 with a full agenda. The Healthcare and New Development Task Group final report was presented by myself. The report described the collaborative work undertaken by the task group and presented a set of recommendations for West Berkshire Council and the Integrated Care Board. Members agreed for the report and final recommendations to be referred to the Executive and to the Integrated Care Board. The responses will be shared at the next Health Scrutiny Committee and monitored in the following months. The Director of Public Health attended the committee, and the Public Health in West Berkshire annual report was reviewed by members. The importance of the public health approach to prevention was noted by members in all aspects of health, including children's mental health, dentistry, healthy places, and inequalities. The committee brought together key partners from the NHS and public health to review diabetes services and prevention. Key parts of the debate included variations in services between practices, how inequalities were being addressed, and prevention. The community wellness outreach service was also discussed. Healthwatch provided an overview of their work plan for 24-25, and the Integrated Care Board gave an update on their key priorities and activities. Access to primary care appointments was highlighted by members. The Health Scrutiny Committee continues to take a collective approach to ensuring commissioners, service providers and public health are involved in preparing reports and answering questions. Healthwatch and the voluntary sector are also involved. The Health Scrutiny Committee are striving to strengthen those relationships through ongoing collaborative work. The work programme of the Health Scrutiny Committee for 24-25 is currently being reviewed. The key items to be on the agenda at the next meeting on the 17th of September include adult mental health services and suicide prevention in West Berkshire. Do members have any comments or questions regarding that? No.
Just full admiration for what they do.
Thank you, Councillor Cotton. Great, okay. Moving on, item 14, Executive Forward Plan. Do members have any comments or questions on this, please? Do we feel there's anything that we need to put on our agenda to review? Nope. Councillor Patton.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to raise my point in the next item, but I'm happy to do it now.
Okay, if you're relevant, yep.
So in the Scrutiny Commission meeting for the 24th of September, there is an item to review Council's approach to managing major projects, identify lessons to be learned from recent projects.
Sorry, Councillor Patton, it probably is best if we bring this up under the work.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, any other comments? No. Okay, right, so we should move swiftly on to the Scrutiny Commission work programme. So, Councillor Pattenden, over to you.
Thank you, yeah. So, yeah, relating to the item on the agenda of the 24th of September regarding project management, because it's such a crucial area to was everything that the council's doing, you know, IT projects, non-IT projects, I feel it'd be really of benefit to the Scrutiny Commission to actually have that as a subject of a task and finish group. Now we could, you know, it could stay on the agenda for the 24th, but you know, that may not be good time. These you know, these meetings are always they're always quite full agendas. It might not be good use of that time. So I'd like to propose that we set up another task and finish group that covers that, and you know, to run as soon as resources will allow.
Thank you, Councillor Patton. And Councillor McKinnon. Yeah,
thanks. I remember when this item came up, it was a couple of meetings ago of the Scrutiny Commission, and I think certainly the proposal was originally purely to look at Faraday Road football ground, and to look at the issues that we could have learned from that. And I think following discussions, you know, across the commission, there was an agreement to roll it up into project management, and it's still identified there on the agenda, which where we have it now. And now we're having a proposal to kick it into a task and finish group. This just reminds me of sort of planning by stealth. Like we were originally going to look at Faraday Road specifically, and now it's project management overall, and now it's going to be a task and finish group. I'd be minded to leave it as it is. Otherwise, we dilute it still further. But I look forward to seeing what colleagues have to say.
Yeah, I suspect Councillor Reid's about to say what I'm going to say. We did originally, it was IT project management. So we were going to look at care director and iTrent. Then the Faraday Road issue came up and we discussed that at the last meeting, said maybe we could roll it into one. And I think Councillor Reid, you suggested calling it project management rather than IT project management. Yeah, over to you, Councillor Reid.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of reflecting more on this and the fact that a significant number of government local council projects continue to fail, and it always appears in public sector reports that the percentage of failure of IT projects in public sector is high compared to commercial. Although I do suspect commercial do hide a number of failures they do from their board members. Not saying that I could give any examples, but I personally think that's something that we should look in. And I think just as an agenda item on a scrutiny committee may not do this justice, and a task and finish group would be suitable. I am cognizant that that puts quite a lot of pressure on officers. So maybe not doing it in parallel, but waiting, depending on what resource availability is after the sports hub, and then doing it following after that. But I think if we can't get IT projects, if we can't learn from failed IT projects in the past, or ones that haven't delivered what they promised, or within the time lines promised, things like transformation for this council, we're going to be on the back foot right from the beginning. So I think it's really important that we absolutely understand what went well, but also what could have been done better. So I support Eric on Councillor Pattenden on this particular point.
Okay, Councillor McKinnon.
Yeah, just don't disagree with what Councillor Reid said there at all. The Faraday Road issue is not an IT issue. And everything that Councillor Reid said is spot on. I think if we're going to do this with IT project management, I think it'd be good to decouple Faraday Road again and to consider it separately. I don't think it needs a task and finish group, but I think we should maybe have Faraday Road as a separate agenda item, and then I'd be happy to support the task and finish group for the IT project sphere, because Faraday Road is not an IT thing at all. It's not really.
Yeah, that's why we changed it to project management rather than IT project management. But yeah, I acknowledge that the topics are quite different. Mr. Oliver, can I just ask, has Melanie Best and Councillor Poole been asked yet to start preparing that report for September?
We were going to have a meeting on Friday, in fact, to sort of kick off discussions on that.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Pattenden.
Yeah, just on the project management question, we're not. I think that it's timely to review project management of all types of projects and to learn the lessons that can be learned from them. So I personally, I think it's quite appropriate to include Care Director, iTrent, Faraday Road, and maybe others that are also of a similar scale, and where there have been similar costs and similar time and effort spent on them. So for me, I think they work as a set of projects to be reviewed by a task and finish group.
Okay. The alternative is that we have a separate meeting about it. Okay. Yeah, so an option is to have a separate meeting, but then obviously the downside of that is that we have another meeting. And we've got quite a packed agenda for September, yes, and we've got Thames Water and the Section 19 report to consider in October. Can I suggest that I go away and talk to Melanie Best and Councillor Poole about this? and get their views as well. I'm quite keen that we do get to look at it in detail. So I bear in mind the fact that you're proposing having a task and finish about it. Maybe they could give an introductory paper at the September meeting, and then we could discuss as part of that having a deeper dive. Councillor Pattenden.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
No.
Be in favour of that. I'd be in favour of initiating a task and finish group, as we've said.
Okay. So if we were to do that, we'd have to table an item at the next scrutiny commission to come up with some terms of reference, and so we'd have to have a more in-depth discussion about the mechanisms. Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chair. I think, and this is not just me, this is probably most of us in the room have been through it. The expectation, the wider expectation, the widest expectation for a local government body and project management is Prince 2. Simple as, it's Prince 2. So there's your answer for the task and finish group. I think what we've got is something quite different. And I support Councillor McKinnon in what he's saying here. We've got different approaches that have been used for different reasons. And when it comes to IT, I think it's a lot of it is external influence that is potentially causing the issue. I think we've got different conversations that need to be held here. I can understand the project management top level banner, but that is Prince 2. That's what should be followed, and it's clearly not being followed properly. And you can see that by residents' comments in social media, apart from anything else. And they're right. They're absolutely right. We've got a methodology that we should be following. So there's a very short answer, as far as I'm concerned, to any task and finish group.
My understanding also is about training of officers. I've been told that if there's a project, people often will go and find someone who is trained in Prince 2 and not necessarily train up the people that are on the new project that actually need to understand the methodology.
And in all honesty, it's not like doing a degree. Prince 2 is actually a reasonably straightforward process to follow, and a reasonable qualification to get at the end of it. And as I said, I suspect most of us that sit in this chamber have been through it at some point.
Okay.
I will be concerned about rolling too much into this. It will lose the focus that it should have, and it will lose the definition of the different categories of project management that is going on all under the same banner.
Can I just ask Councillor Pattenden, are there any other projects that you are concerned about and that are part of your thinking about broadening this out into a task and finish?
No, not really. No, not
okay.
at the moment. That's not to say there aren't any that I'm not aware of, but but there's none that I'm conscious of at the moment.
Okay. I'm quite keen that we reach consensus on this, but we can obviously have a vote about it. If you're so minded, we can have a vote to decide whether or not to have a task and finish. I'm quite keen to talk to the officers and get a bit more of their input into their thinking about whether this can be dealt with through a paper that perhaps we then do a deeper dive, or we go straight into a task and finish. I'd be quite interested to get their views on that. Would members be happy for me to go off and do that and then report back to you in between meetings about how we can progress, or would you rather have a vote on this now, Councillor Pattenden?
I'd rather vote now, thank you.
You'd rather vote, okay. Councillor McKinnon.
I'm amazed at Councillor Pattinson's stance. I mean, what you've suggested is a perfectly reasonable approach to go and have a chat with officers to think about workload and what the executive member thinks about this. Councillor Pattenden appears to be desperate to put this to a vote now, which I'm very suspicious about.
Okay, it's Councillor Pattenden's right to propose something for us to have a vote, so I propose that we do that. And I will take that as a recommendation, and I will go and talk to the officers and get their views as well, and I will report back to you as soon as possible so that you're up to date about the thinking around that. Councillor Pattenden, would you like to make a proposal?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we form a task and finish group to review project management that covers Care Director, iTrent and the Faraday Road football ground.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Reid. All those in favour? All those against? Okay. I'm going to abstain on this one. So that has passed. So I acknowledge that. What I will do now is go away and talk to the officers, and I will tell them that we've had a vote on that. And we'll have a discussion, and then I will get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Can I just clarify then that we are only, because we've just had conversation about an extended list. This task and finish group, if that all goes through, is only looking at these three, not everything else that we've just talked about as possibly being required.
Just those three. Yeah, Councillor Pattenden has said that there isn't anything else that he's minded to include in that.
What a shame.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Is there anything else on the work programme? We're due to have an item in September about the special educational needs and high needs block, which is very important. We obviously know that that's got the biggest deficit, and it's been said before that if we were to tip into section 114, that would probably be the thing that does it. So we do have to keep a very close eye on that, and we have agreed with Anne-Marie Dodge that we will get a 6-monthly update on that. So it will come to us in September and it will come to us again early in 2025. Can I just ask, on one item, we've got Councillor Dillon down as being the relevant portfolio holder for the community safety in September. Presumably there will be a new portfolio holder and we will need to make sure that they have sufficient notice of that item to prepare for it.
I haven't been advised of who the new portfolio holder will be, but I've just left Councillor Dillon as he's still listed as the relevant one.
Okay. So we need to make sure that whoever takes over is updated about that, because presumably Superintendent Andy Penrith already has this in their diary. Okay, good. So we need to make sure whoever the portfolio holder is knows that they need to be available at that meeting as well, and that that meeting date is already set. And yes, sorry, beg your pardon, Councillor Stewart.
That's right. It was just a question about the adult social care briefing, because that seems to be a separate briefing. And I just want apologies because I haven't been in other meetings to know the context, but I would be obviously very interested in it. Is there a reason why it's a separate briefing in September?
Originally, because there was, I think we spend something like, is it £10 million on 20 people or 40 people or something like that? We decided it'd be really good to get some anonymised case studies to get our heads around how it is that we spend so much money on individuals. Clearly, it's correct that we do so, but why is it that we do that? And are there any recommendations that we can make as scrutiny commission about any changes that could be made to that? So that's how that came about originally. And then the SEND and high needs block separately, because that's such a big issue around funding. I mean, we've got a date to be confirmed for adult social care briefing. Do we know when we might have a date for that?
I haven't discussed it with Polco yet, but yeah, happy to pick that up after the meeting.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we'll try and pin that date down then. Yeah, are you happy with that, Councillor Stewart? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. At the governance meeting yesterday, we actually called this in and asked for a report on the risks or factors of this as well. So it's not just this committee that's concerned.
Is that the adult social care or the SEND?
The SEND.
The SEND. Okay, thank you. And then Thames Water, I think, have confirmed that they can come on the 17th of October, off the top of my head. I don't think we've circulated that date to other members yet, have we? No. So 17th of October is when Thames Water can come along. And presumably we're waiting to hear from the Environment Agency whether they can make the same date. Okay. That will be a really big, important meeting. As members will be aware, we went through a lot of great detail last year. And we had the update from me at the last meeting. We will have the Section 19 report at that meeting as well, which the council are drafting following the flooding incidents earlier this year. So we will have a lot to get our teeth into. Good. Any other comments on the work programme? No. Okie dokie, thank you. A couple of things to mention, sorry, in my notes here. It's proposed to have another session with members of the Executive and Corporate Board in September, as we did last year, to review the council's priorities and areas of underperformance. Are members happy to do that again? Yeah, okay, great. So we need to find a date for all concerned. Good. I think that was very useful last time. And obviously, ultimately, it is up to members of scrutiny what we decide to scrutinise, but I think it's worth hearing from executive about their priorities. And that's that on that. Good. So that brings us to the end of our agenda at 9 o'clock. We've got through a lot in the last 2.5 hours. So thank you very much indeed for your contributions. If you could remain in your seats, please, until the meeting has formally closed. Thank you very much.
We're all clear.
I think it was 9:03 when we finished the